Demon hunters, warring gods, and forgotten worlds await with T&M Comics. Click the links below to enter their fantastical realm. Tracing the source of musical adaptations is not always a direct, simple line from A to B. For example, Miss Saigon is structurally a Vietnam War-era rework of Madame Butterfly, but it was inspired by a photograph of a Vietnamese mother sending her child to live with the American father she had never met. Similarly, if you trace the lineage of A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder all the way back, it comes from the early 20th century novel Israel Rank, the Autobiography of a Killer by Roy Horniman. But it actually owes a lot more to an earlier adaptation of Horniman's work in terms of style, plot structure, and most importantly, the central gimmick of having a single actor play an entire family of murder victims. With that in mind, today's At the Source will be looking at the 1949 film Kind Hearts and Coronets, directed by Robert Hamer. Kind Hearts and Coronets is one of a series of comic films made by Britain's Ealing Studios between 1947 and 1957. The Ealing comedies had a broad range of subjects and tones, but there are some notable threads running through all of them: a sophisticated, droll sense of humor, a subversive skewering of traditional institutions, and solid ensemble casts. Several actors were recurring fixtures in the films, among them Alec Guinness. This movie, in which he does a chameleon-like turn as 8 members of the ill-fated Gascoigne family, was his first for the studio. So here's how it originally went down. Louis Gascoigne Mazzini, 10th Duke of Chalfont, is awaiting his execution and composing a memoir detailing how he came to be in this position. Although Louis's mother was cast away from the snobbish Gascoignes for marrying an opera singer, she often regaled Louis with stories of his noble relatives, notably the unusual circumstances which allow the title to pass through both male and female lineages. After his mother's dying request to be buried in the family vault is rejected and his childhood sweetheart Sibella refuses him to marry for wealth, Louis vows revenge and plots to do away with all the Gascoignes who stand between him and the dukedom. He proceeds to keep himself quite busy, systematically dispatching his maternal relations through a variety of methods while carrying on an affair with Sibella and paying courtship to Edith, the widow of one of his victims. After he kills the current duke and natural causes conveniently carry off the only member of the family who was decent to him, Louis ascends to the title and marries Edith, but his joy is short-lived as he is arrested, tried, and convicted of the murder of Sibella's oafish husband Lionel, ironically a crime of which he is innocent. On the eve of his execution, Sibella visits Louis, offering to produce evidence that Lionel committed suicide on the condition that he off Edith in order for them to be together. Louis agrees, reasoning he can dispose of whichever woman he chooses at his convenience, and he is released, but as he leaves the prison comes to the horrified realization that he left his very incriminating memoirs behind in his cell. If you've seen or listened to Gentleman's Guide, this should sound like very familiar ground with just the names changed, except for Sibella, whose name is such a perfect fit for her character that an alteration is inconceivable. And indeed, musical fans will pick up on several lines and scenes that are directly paralleled between the two. But there is a significant difference in tone, which is best described as the difference between Oscar Wilde and Gilbert and Sullivan. The musical's mood is altogether broader and more farcical, in contrast to the dry wit of the film. For example, compare the scene where Edith decides to become Louis's wife with a similar scene between Phoebe and Monty. What in the film is a restrained, slightly tense scene with Louis trying to politely get Edith out of the way before Sibella can come for her usual assignation, becomes in the musical the most broadly comic scene of the evening, set around a fantastic high-energy trio. This can be explained by the difference between a mid-century British audience and a new millennium American one, but also takes into account the more stylized and physical nature of musical theater. There's also some notable contrasts between Louis Mazzini and his musical counterpart Monty Navarro. Both are adept at concealing their murderous intention behind an effortlessly charming facade, but a couple of things edge Monty a little higher on the sympathy scale. First, unlike Louis, Monty is completely unaware of his noble lineage until informed of it after his mother's death by Miss Shingle. This gives him less time to brood on the position that has been denied to him and makes him feel a little less entitled. Second, Monty's narration and internal dialogue are a lot more conflicted than Louis'. Though the end result is the same, we see him having struggles with conscience in scenes like Poison in My Pocket or The Last One You'd Expect that make him feel not entirely cold-blooded. So too does switching his courtship from the widowed by his own hand Edith to Phoebe, who is rewritten as the victim's sister. Kind Hearts and Coronets is very entertaining, with stunning versatility from Guinness, to say nothing of the makeup and effects team, and a solid performance by Dennis Price as the affable yet ruthless Louis. But the real highlight for me is Joan Greenwood as Sibella, who gives the character a subtle intelligence and cunning lurking behind her superficial demeanor. Greenwood's performance emphasizes the fact that both Louis Mazzini and Monty Navarro would have failed if not for the timely intervention of the women around them. You know what they say, behind every man slaughtering his upper-class twit relatives is a woman or two willing to cover for him in a pinch.
Well, there's a rose in the fisted blood, and the eagle flies with the dove. And if you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. Love the one you're with.